Hi everybody, Golden Era Bookworm here, and today we continue with a series of interviews with Ken Waller, and in today's video, Ken recalls stories of the myth, Sergio Oliva, which are pretty crazy to hear, as well as going into the topic of steroids and contest preparation during the Golden Era. Enjoy. Thanks for these. I really enjoy this. Feel free to add those little extra tidbits of stories, because I think people are going to enjoy this.
I'll tell you another thing. In between the contest at the YMCA Mr. America, I became pretty good friends with Sergio.
Yep.
Now, he had a big green Buick Electric convertible.
Right.
So he says, "You want to get something to eat before the contest starts?" I said, "Okay." So he took me to McDonald's. Now, he's going to give an exhibition. He is eating French fries, cheeseburgers, and Coca-Cola.
and still growing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. The couple of times that I've seen him at shows, when I first saw him, that was amazing. He just the way his tie-ins and everything.
Well, on that note, I mean, everyone's talked about, I've spoken to Bob Guida, may he rest in peace, Terry Strand, and other friends of Sergio, and everyone talks about that he just ate whatever he wanted and he just still grew. But would you know what...
He ate...
Go on.
Yeah, and when I won the NABU Mr. Universe in London in 1971, there was a pro and an amateur. And the pro was Bill Pearl and Sergio. Now, where we were staying in the warm-up room, it was taking quite a while. Sergio was doing chins. I don't know. He must have done chins off and on for like 2 hours.
Jeez.
And I mean, he would just sit back there and do chins and blow up like a big balloon. I guess whatever he did, it just worked for him.
Did he vary the chins, like wide grip, short grip, neutral, one-handed?
No, he didn't. No, it wasn't a chin and bar. It was a pipe through the ceiling, a water pipe or something. It had to be cold water because hot water would have burnt your hand. Yeah. No, he would just jump up there and grab the pipe and start chinning.
But what, did he vary the grip at all, or just use wide grip the whole time?
He didn't vary nothing. He would just do the same thing over and over and over, and this went on for the whole time until he went out there.
Damn. Yeah, I've heard this. Like Arnold, in an interview once, I think in his book actually, he states the same thing, that when he went to Chicago to train with Sergio did something like 10 or 20 sets of 20 rep chins, and it took him about an hour. And then when he was finished, he looked at Arnold, who was training with him, and said, "Okay, now we start." That was his warm-up.
Yeah, I mean, some of these guys in the old school was completely different. Damn. I remember one time when Serge Ubre came over from France to train one summer, and he went over and he must have been a 15-pound dumbbell, and he stood there. He must have did this one little exercise on the edge of the bench, picking that 15-pound dumbbell up for his arms. And it wasn't no more than like 15 pounds. And the more he did that little exercise, the bigger his arm got.
Yeah.
You can watch it while you're sitting there.
Yeah, I heard he had amazing muscle control, like mind-muscle connection, Serge Nubret.
Yeah. I mean, and his most muscular pose, the traps, boy, they would jump up to his ears.
Yeah, that's madness.
But then you look at him completely, and his legs were really lacking compared to his upper body.
Yeah.
But he would hide all that because he was such a good poser.
That's true. On either of them, back to Sergio. I know this is out of my questions now, but you brought it up, so I think it's an interesting topic. He had this horrible way of eating and insane way of training. Basically, everything was so unstructured, as you said, nothing like today. Would you know what his steroid protocol was at all? Did he ever discuss that with you, or did he keep that quiet?
I never talked to anything about that, and that's another thing about when I got to California, I didn't even know what a steroid was. Mm-hmm. I'd already won. I placed second in the AAU Mr. America. I won the Junior Mr. USA, the Junior Mr. America, and when I got to California, and got the gold, I learned a little bit about steroids, and now that's another thing. If I had to do all over, I would have read everything that there is about diet, nutrition, and steroids, mm-hmm. because I don't know the first thing about nutrition right now, if you want to know the truth.
Right.
I still eat what I want to. And as far as steroids, back when I started, they weren't illegal at the time.
Yeah.
And there's all these things out that if you take them, you're going to be sterile. You get bad acne. Just you name it, the stuff came out. So I would take something like 6 weeks before a show, and I might take 2 Dianabol or something. And then when the show comes, I'd go out and eat after the show and enjoy myself and not take anything else to another show. And the thing about me as a bodybuilder, I enjoyed the bodybuilding, but when I left the gym, I didn't want to talk about it. I wanted to go out and have fun.
Yeah.
And I wanted to eat what I wanted to. Sometimes I'd gain almost 20 pounds from the day of the show to after the show. And if you ever looked at anything, you'll notice that most of the pictures you see of me are actually taken at the show, or maybe right after, before I started my eating regimen. Because, and the other thing is, I used to really envy black bodybuilders because they could put this like baby oil on the skin, and then they would just glisten. I would have to start putting suntan on the night before the show, stay awake maybe, and sit up in a chair all night so it didn't sweat off. Because we didn't have all this spray-on stuff and whatever it is now. Because when I did it, if they thought that you had suntan or some of that stuff on, they would take points off. It's not like it was now. And so the only way you could make money back then off of bodybuilding was give exhibitions. Well, I didn't stay in shape to give exhibitions, and I wasn't going to put that QT on if there wasn't a contest. So I never gave any exhibitions. I think I might have gave 2 in my whole life. So I couldn't make money that way. I don't know if Ken told you this or anybody else, but what I did, I used to like to work on cars, and I'd buy Corvettes or something. I think I sold a car I sold one to Robbie Robinson. I sold a car to Roger Kallert. I sold one to Bill Grant.
I've actually heard about this. Corvettes, you used to fix them up and sell them.
Yeah, I used to buy all big block Corvettes. That was my hobby. At one time, I had 6 of them.
Cool.
Each one of those cars now would be worth over $100,000.
Yeah, awesome. So that was Ken Waller on Sergio Oliva, and yeah, every time I hear stories about the myth, it really amazes me. I mean, Sergio's genetics were just out of this world. Even Ken, who retells the story of how he met the myth and became friends with Sergio, and sees him before a show blowing up on a meal of McDonald's, including French fries, cheeseburgers, and a Coca-Cola. I mean, this guy just grew from anything. And if you have read, I believe it's Arnold's Education of a Bodybuilder, you will recall reading about how Arnold once went to Chicago to train at the Duncan YMCA with Sergio, like to study him, to see how he trained after having lost the 1969 Mr. Olympia contest to Sergio. And Arnold would recount the story of witnessing Sergio warm up for his workout, performing set after set after set of chins. I think it was 20 in total. And then telling Arnold, exclaiming out, "Now we begin." That's just crazy stuff. You can imagine Arnold was completely wiped out after the warm up alone, and he couldn't believe it, but he understood how intense Sergio's training was. And so when you hear Ken Waller talking about how he witnessed Sergio pump up for 2 hours doing wide grip pull-ups, that's just not a surprise at all. As Ken stated, old school bodybuilders trained completely differently to each other, using instinct, having gained an understanding of their own physiques and how they responded over the years. And it's nothing like today where it's so calculated based on scientific literature, etc. He gives the example, for example, of how Serge Nubret, using a 15-pound dumbbell, could pump up his arms with enough mental concentration, and this is just to highlight this example. I mean, here you have Serge Nubret just blowing up his arms with a 15-pound dumbbell, yet you have Sergio doing hours of chin-ups to blow up his upper body, as Ken stated. Old school bodybuilders, they all train differently based on their own experiences. Finally, we moved into the topic of steroids, and although he and neither I have ever found out what Sergio's drug cycle was, there is no doubt that he took them. But Ken does state that his own knowledge of the topic was rather limited, taking 2 Dianabol a day, which was legal at the time, of course, 6 weeks prior to a show after finding out about them at Gold's Gym. In fact, Ken claims to have placed second in the AAU Mr. America and won the Junior Mr. USA and Junior Mr. America prior to taking steroids. I will admit that Ken seemed rather vague about his use and this whole topic, which is why I specifically asked him to elaborate, and this segment of the interview which I'm talking about will be shared on my channel in an upcoming video. Ken equally was rather vague on what he ate, but in his defense, he states that his knowledge on nutrition was not great and that he just ate what he wanted, which is more or less the approach that most bodybuilders took during these times. As frustrating as it may seem to many listeners, you all need to understand that nutrition back then was very basic and you just ate. You just ate to grow. There was little knowledge on supplements, on macros, or anything like that and all these terms that we use nowadays. And the approach was not as calculated and overcomplicated as it is today. Having said that, Ken does admit that if he had the chance to do it all over, he would learn everything on nutrition, supplements, and steroids. But he did eat and still eats what he wants. And he actually, he looks in pretty good shape if you see his most recent photos. What I really did like about this part of our conversation was Ken's attitude to life. During his bodybuilding career, he enjoyed bodybuilding, but when he left the gym, he had fun and enjoyed his food. He didn't obsess about it day and night like so many do today. An interesting side note was what many have already stated, and that is that there wasn't much money in bodybuilding at all during that time. And bodybuilders, they kind of just scraped by. Waller would make his own money by buying Corvettes, working on them, and then he would sell them off. And he sold Corvettes, for example, to Robbie Robinson, Roger Callard, and Bill Grant. So, that was Ken Waller on Sergio Oliva and the topic of steroids, nutrition, contest preparation, and just in general stories that Ken Waller shared with me. If you have enjoyed this video, then please give the video a like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. In the next video with Ken, we talk about his obsession in wanting to create a physique, a classic physique, like Steve Reeves. So stay tuned for that one. That's it from me. This is the Golden Era Bookworm saying bye for now. Head to www.goldenerabookworm.com for the biggest range of classic old school bodybuilding books as ebooks, e-magazines such as Iron Man and Reg Park Journal, high-quality bodybuilding posters of the Golden Era stars, merchandise and classic gymwear featuring Steve Reeves, Marvin Eder, John Grimmick, Reg Park, and many other Golden Era stars. For those wishing to build a classic physique, lose fat and build muscle, online training is also available. Collectibles such as rare autographed photos from the Golden Era stars are also available, and to collaborate, please get in touch. As a natural bodybuilder, it is imperative to know your own testosterone levels, as they are a reflection of the anabolic environment created by your diet and training. I would highly recommend using the male hormone test kit from Let's Get Checked, and make sure you use my code GOLDEN30 for a 30% discount. Again, the advantage of checking yourself regularly is that you will know how well your body is anabolically primed to put on the much desired muscle you are working for. Not all of us have the time to go to a gym or the opportunity to have a coach to teach us one-on-one, but with the Future Fitness app, it's like having a personal trainer in your living room. From February 11th onwards, you can try the Future Fitness app for only $19 for the first month. Think of what you can accomplish during that first month. So go on and hit my link at tryfuture.co/GEB to get started. Now, if you're interested in learning more about Vince Gironda's approach to bodybuilding, his principles, and all these tips of wisdom that he has, but to be honest, these 3 books, I believe, which I call the Classic Physique Bundle, are the best books that Vince ever came out with. And they, of course, are the Wild Physique, the Master Series, and the Pro Series. Have a look at it this way. The Wild Physique, I believe, is like the ABCs of Vince Gironda's principles to bodybuilding. He teaches you the exercises and his principles, but how do you put them together? Well, the Master Series is a 14-month program of using all of these principles, all of the diets that Vince came out with, all of the exercises, and of course the Pro Series was a book that he came out with later on, specially targeted for getting into competition. It's just these 3 books, as I call it, the Classic Physique Bundle, Vince's best work, and available, of course, at www.goldenerabookum.com.